Thank you again for coming, and welcome on our, I don't know how, what's that, 24th meetup that we have all together. And today we'll have a pretty specific and quite attractive topic, which goes around basically the notion is how to set your new hire up for success, but the notion behind this how to save money, because that's what it is, right? Be more effective. And that's the whole story, and you can leave. No, I'm just kidding. Just today we'll have, I think you know all our principles, so I will skip it for today. Let's come to the reality of things. I think you know our faces. What's the most important thing is that we'll have, again, Thijs, who's coming from NN. Thijs, if you can come over here for a second. So I want to welcome Thijs over here, so thank you for coming. Then we have Michal. Michal is from Mews. I was going to say make.com, of course, so welcome, Michal. And of course, if you allow me, I will close it all together, and I will just hand it over to Thijs right after a couple of things, which is really the equation, right? The reason why we speak about it is that throughout the onboarding, you can save loads of money by making people more productive and more efficient from day one. I would say day 30, let's be honest. Or you can make a decision that we are kind of not compatible. And again, saving money, because you know how it goes. How many people have fired someone for the first time in their life? Do you have that experience? Okay. That's quite a decent number. And I know how it feels, right? So usually like when you want to say goodbye to someone, it hurts. It hurts your feeling. You are thinking of it for 3 days or a week constantly. Although that person, they already made their mind about and having another bunch of opportunities. But still, it's not an easy decision. And what we usually see is that we say, let's give them a chance for another month, for another quarter, for another half a year. And you end up having some sort of destabilized or toxic team. That's something that you don't want to encounter. And this will be really specifically the topic that we want to open today with you. And on top, we want to give you a very detailed guideline that you can adopt yourself and improve your own, I would say, ways of onboarding the new starters. And mainly, please make sure that you have at least something to put your notes upon, because I think, again, we'll give you some quite decent and high quality content here, all together with Thijs, Michal and me. So without further ado, these are our nice faces. We can move over to Thijs, and please feel free to scan your Slido as usual. Don't be hesitant to put any sort of questions, witty questions, dirty questions, whatever comes to your mind, we will do our best to answer if we are allowed. I was told NN has no strict policy on using rude words, which is fine. So with that in mind, over to you, Thijs, and let's have some fun. So right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marian, and thanks overall for. Oh, okay. Haven't done anything yet, that's a good start. So thanks for coming to Digital Hub. Indeed, I was asked to tell a little bit about the onboarding process we have here, and whether that's because we're very good at it or we're maybe not that good at it. Let's see. We'll see that hopefully at the end, and maybe with your input we can get better at it. Before I go into that, let me do a quick introduction of myself. Thijs, the pronunciation is a bit different, but I forgive you because nobody outside the Netherlands does that correctly. Thijs Wolters. Indeed, as the name and my accent implies, I'm not Czech, I am from the Netherlands. I moved to Prague, the Czech Republic, about 5 years ago, 1 or 2 months before COVID hit, so my timing wasn't fantastic, but yeah, that's life. I've been working for NN much longer, about 21 years. Did lots of different things for NN, all in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam mostly. Usually all in the field of IT, either a bit more hands-on business analyst, I've been an IT security officer, or as a manager or technical product owner or whatever name in that time period was the thing to be called. I joined here in the Digital Hub in May last year, and here I'm responsible for a team that builds and maintains applications for our group finance colleagues. So there we have accountants, actuaries, all kind of very smart people. They use different kind of software to get their data, to make their reports, and many of those applications are built and maintained by the team here, which I am leading. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also going to tell a little bit about Digital Hub. Marian already asked me, keep it short, don't do not too much promo. I will definitely keep it short, but the reason I do want to tell it, aside from the fact that we're proud about this place, is also that it has some relevance to how we onboard people, because how we work has impact on that. So what is it? I will not read all the slides literally. So it's, of course, to start with, it's part of NN, which is a big insurance company, mainly active in Europe and in Japan. And what we do here, established in 2011, is basically being, pick a fancy name, shared service center, center of excellence for IT and digital services for all locations, mainly the Netherlands, because the Netherlands is the biggest one. Last year we changed our name. We rebranded us from IT Hub to Digital Hub. So every time if I still say IT Hub, I should put 100 Czech crowns in the jar, because we should learn to say the new correct name. A quick slide. So this is the countries that we are all serving to, and also the different business units. Again, why is this also relevant for the onboarding? Because some of the teams we have are hybrid, being partially, for example, in the Netherlands and partially here in Prague. And that has an impact on how you successfully or unsuccessfully onboard employees. We have learned. Now, what kind of service do we do? Lots of them. Like I said, my responsibility is in application development and maintenance. As you can see, we do lots of other things as well. And then a last slide about the Digital Hub, also to give a bit of an idea what kind of people do we have, because also that influences onboarding. We have about 310 people. I think that includes both Madrid and Prague, because we have 2 locations. It's a very diverse group, especially looking at the different nationalities. So that, again, is something that is something to take into account when onboarding somebody, especially if they're from a different background than, in this case, Czech. And indeed, we do a lot of hybrid and remote way of working. So even if you were looking around here and you thought, oh, it's a bit empty, yes, that happens sometimes. Many people are working from home or from another location. So good, that was a little bit the introduction. Now let's look a bit at the onboarding process. Again, I'm not here the guru telling you we have the silver bullet, so what I'm telling you here is the perfect way, take notes and you'll be done. For sure not. We do have quite some experience with onboarding lots of new people, and also experience with messing that part up. So looking at the experience we've had, or I had so far, I try to put on some, okay, what are the key moments in this onboarding process and what to do or what not to do based on my experience. Starting with those 3 key moments, I will go over them, I will mention them and then go over them. The first one is actually before day 1. Then day 1 itself, and then the rest of the 89 days. It's not a completely fair distribution, but let me give you some things that I have experienced in those key points and why I think they are key points. Starting with before day 1. I don't mean the whole recruitment process, because we could probably do a whole other meetup just about the recruitment process. But what I mean is after the moment you have signed a contract with a new employee, they are happy to work for you, you're happy to have them, and the actual start date. And sometimes there's quite some time between those 2 moments. Especially here, what was different for me in the Czech Republic, I think the resignation period by law is at least 2 months. So it can be the case that you have agreed with somebody and then you see them in your office about 2 or 3 months later. So what is important in that period? First off, I think it is important that you keep somebody engaged, especially if the time gap is so large. We've had cases where we thought we had somebody, they would be starting at some date, and 2 weeks before that date, they suddenly said, yeah, you know what, I got a different offer, so I'm not starting, and then thank you, bye. Yeah, complete waste of your time. You thought you had somebody, and you have to start from scratch again. So can you always prevent that? Probably not, but by keeping people engaged and how to do that, I try to do it not by formally inviting them here and have work talks, just more if your team has an event, invite that new joiner, things like that. I mean, obvious things, but also easy to forget. So that's one thing. The other thing, even more obvious, but even more frustratingly, how often I'm not able to manage it, is to make sure that things are arranged like laptop, phone, access, all that stuff. And it bothers me if I'm not able to do it because it feels it's my responsibility. Of course, HR can help, but in the end, I'm the hiring manager. I should make sure everything is in place. When it's not, yeah, first of all, it's annoying because it costs time. Okay, so it eats into your 90 days. More frustrating, I think, is that it makes your new engineer feel maybe a bit less welcome. Like, yeah, do they want me or not? Why is there no laptop for me? Why can I not access the stuff I need? So it's something I always strive to. And then why do I still fail? And it has a little bit to do with the model, what I said here. When we onboard somebody on a team here that we fully manage, where we have a team where we provide a service, then it usually goes fine because we know what to do, we know what to provide, no problem, most of the time. When we do it for a team that is, for example, mostly in the Netherlands or a new Dutch team that for the first time is bringing some of their work here, we struggle. Because we don't necessarily know already what is needed. The Dutch team, sometimes the communication goes well, sometimes not. Sometimes we found out that some of these roles are not available in the Czech Republic. You have to do first some technical stuff. Now, lots of things, and every time when I think, okay, this time I have it, this time it's going to be, yeah, there's always something pops up 1 or 2 days before the start why it doesn't work. So this is something I find as a manager frustrating that I'm not always able to take care of it. And like I said, it also, I think, doesn't provide a good start. So that's before day one. So basically there, if you look at it, it's more like, are you going to make it a success there? No, but you are. If you mess it up there, you're already basically behind. So you have to catch up later. Then we have day one. Now, day one for a new engineer, or in fact any new employee, is always a bit exciting, right? New company, new people, so you're a bit nervous. What we do here to try to, get people to settle in, to relax, is we organize something we call the onboarding day, where all the new joiners in that month come together. It's a session usually hosted by the head of the Digital Hub, Petter. And what we do there, we introduce them to each other, of course, and it's sort of an informal way of making them feel comfortable, but also sharing all of the necessary information like, okay, enhance mission, vision, strategy, why are we here, who is who in the Digital Hub, if you have issues with your salary, who is HR, things like that. Aside from that, let's say, formal sending of information, we also combine it with an informal session like this here in this square. We order pizza, all the new joiners are there, but also the hiring manager or the colleagues who are going to do the onboarding for this person are there. So that sort of is what we apply for every new employee, and it sort of, hopefully, it calms them a bit down. It makes them feel already like, okay, I know some people, I can move around here. It seems nice, the vibe's good. So that's one thing. The other thing that we have from day one and onwards is, we call it the buddy system. So we connect, no, we don't try, we do. We connect every new joiner with a random person who's already a bit longer with us. And that is not so much to support the work, but more like, okay, where can I find the showers in the office? Where can I get good coffee around? Where do you generally go for beers? So it's that kind of support, I would say. Now, some people love it, spend a lot of time with their buddy, fantastic. Some people talk to that person once or twice and then think, yeah, not for me, I will find my way. Also fine, but at least we provide it so that all these things are more to help a new person settle in. Then the last of the 89 days, so the easy part. No, I strongly believe in not having a fixed run book, like week 1, the engineer needs to read all documentation, week 2 gets access to the dev environment and can look at the code. I don't believe in that. The reason I don't believe in that is mainly because, and we all know, people all have a different way of absorbing knowledge, of learning. An anecdote about the first time I realized that, back in high school, I was 16, 17, English class, and I was pretty good in English. You may not expect it, but I was a bit of a nerd then. So I read Lord of the Rings in English, played English video games, whatever, so no problem. We had English class and our teacher said, okay, today, class, I'm going to help you prepare for your English reading exam. Okay, useful, why not? She said, look, if you have an exam, You go there, you bring 6 different colors of marker, you read the first paragraph of your first text, you take your green marker and you mark it green. Then you read the last paragraph, you take your red marker, you mark it red, then you go to your second paragraph. After 10 minutes, I was lost in the colors and the paragraphs and the what? So I decided to stop listening, like, I don't know what she's doing, but this is not for me, and fine. At the end of the class, I talked to a friend of mine, asking her, hey, what did you think of this English lesson? And she was like, it's amazing. This is going to help me pass my exam. And I was, what? So I was completely flabbergasted that something that I thought was complete rubbish worked very well for somebody else. So that was the first time for me, like, okay, maybe people's brains work differently. Now, translating that back to the onboarding journey, I would be afraid if I provide a fixed run book for a certain team, always do this, I do the same thing. I force a certain method upon somebody that just doesn't work. Does that then mean we don't have a plan, we just wing it whenever somebody comes and we'll see what happens? No, of course not. That's the other end of the spectrum. I think you need to have a couple of building blocks in place that you can apply as your new engineer likes or needs. So for me, the first one, documentation. It's usually not a favorite topic in our sector, and it's often not there or up to date. But on the other hand, it is for many people the preferred way to absorb knowledge. Having time and something to properly read, think about it, reflect on it, and later ask questions, for very many people that is the best way to absorb knowledge. So if a team gets a new engineer, I do recommend them to at least have a sort of minimum baseline of documentation that's up to date and can be shared. Second thing is a sandbox or development environment, a place where somebody can play around, see the code, see how the application or whatever they're working on works, without being afraid to break it or to hinder your colleagues. For example, if I look at myself, if you give me just the documentation, I can read it 4 times and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't register. If I actually see it on my screen, I see things happening, that for me, it sticks. So that's why I think having something like that also very helpful. Third one, obviously, good colleagues. I mean, in the end, you learn from your colleagues, you need somebody to ask questions to. That's the obvious one. It should therefore also be obvious that you need to have colleagues who have time available to do this. And again, in practice, it sometimes gets forgotten. Like, we have a new somebody, fine. Still, everybody's busy with their work. And okay, I can help with onboarding on the side. That doesn't work, I believe. If your new engineer doesn't feel like they can ask questions, if they feel like, but they're so busy, if I'm bothering them with my stupid questions, you are again losing time, and you will not have an effective engineer in those 90 days. So making sure that's there is very important. Another thing to think about with colleagues is sometimes people just do not click, and I don't mean whether they necessarily like each other. I mean that's good, but it's also just sometimes the way people explain things is not the right way for the person receiving that information. So it's always good to evaluate regularly if this is still a good match, if this colleague that you have asked to help onboarding, if that's still the right match or not. The last thing in those building blocks, as I call them, is actual hands-on work. Yes, you can share documentation, do presentations, I don't know what. In the end, you want to have the new engineer do some actual work. Not just because that's how they learn fast, yeah, sure they do. Much more so because it builds confidence. If somebody who's new, at least when I'm new somewhere, I want to prove myself. I feel like I should show that I'm valuable. They made a good choice hiring me, so I want to, as quickly as possible, do something that matters. So if you know that maybe many people and new engineers are like that, make sure they can do something that adds value quickly. So maybe keep some bugs that are relatively easy to solve, keep them on the side if you know you're going to have a new joiner. Have some easy tasks or user stories, whatever you do. Again, yes, they will learn, but I think the most value comes from they will feel more confident, they will be maybe a bit less on edge, and I think that will smooth the rest of the onboarding almost automatically. So that's like I said, a bit of the key points, at least based on my experience. Maybe some practical examples using those key moments where it went wrong. I already mentioned one, that people don't even start because for whatever reason, before their start date, we already lost them. That definitely happened. Cases where we say, look, we don't have the right stuff available on day one. Quite frustratingly, even not that long ago, I think it was 1st of December, I had a new joiner, and she had to wait basically almost 2 weeks before she could actually get started. Now, disaster. I'm still ashamed to say it out loud here, but that's terrible, right? Luckily, she was very relaxed with it, and she's now happy, but yeah, it's not how you want to start. I have also seen cases where, especially with teams that are already a bit more longer existing, maybe a bit more experienced, where they have a run book for onboarding. And on the one hand, it's great. It means they thought about it and they have something there. But I have indeed seen what I was telling about. They stick to that as if it's their Bible. This is how we do onboarding. And they don't check whether it works or not. And look, in the end, insofar I've experienced, it didn't lead to people leaving or quitting, but it's just made the process that much more slow and frustrating for everybody involved. So being able to have that flexibility and to regularly evaluate together with your new engineer, asking them what works for them, it just speeds up the process with less frustration for everybody involved. So wrapping up, I made a short summary, but I picked 3 crucial moments where I mentioned some points, and I realized none of these points, like I said, none of them silver bullets. None of them are like, wow, we could have never thought about it ourselves. But I do hope I was able to tell a little bit behind why we do think these are important and what happens if you don't apply them. So again, before day one, this is where you maybe not win the battle, but you can definitely, lose is a big word, but yeah, basically you can mess up a lot there if you don't do this well. Day one, mainly focused on making somebody comfortable, relaxed, feeling a bit at home. And for the rest of the 8-9 days, be flexible and make sure you check with your new engineer what is working and what is not, and don't be too rigid in your standard process. That was actually what I wanted to tell you. Of course, any questions or comments, more than welcome. I see a hand raised there.
How do you evaluate the person completed probation period you want to keep?
That's a good question. Also, again, similar to that, we don't have one fixed way how we evaluate. I think it's in the end usually a discussion between the team or the team lead where that person is onboarding and looking back at what was achieved. So we do expect certain things. After 3 months, you do expect that somebody is able to contribute something. And that is maybe where you look at most. But you touch upon a point where I do have to admit, also there we could be maybe a bit more structured. Like, what are the criteria? Rather than every time doing it a bit based on gut feeling.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I will read it from Slido because I was writing.
Okay, good.
So yeah, maybe it was similar to the previous question. How do you reconcile different ways of learning with probation expectations and onboarding progress? So there are obviously proven ways how people could get onboarded easily, right? And that structure might be helpful to people, so they don't need to figure it out on themselves, right? Yeah. But you mentioned that, okay, let's go with flexibility instead. But then how do you, let's say, secure the success of the probation if the flexibility is so extensive as you described?
Fair question. What I think needs to be flexible is not so much, because there's a probation period, 90 days, and within that period things need to be achieved. So the flexibility is more not look, we'll see whatever happens and it's fine. It's more about how do you provide that knowledge. So we do, like I said, we don't have that much fixed criteria necessarily, but we do have sort of a time path in what we expect to happen at certain points. Whether somebody, and for example, the first 2 weeks are usually about gaining knowledge of the system, the technology, whatever. So that's more or less, yes, kind of fixed. Whether that goes by reading the mainly documentation, by playing around, that is where the flexibility is.
Right, okay. Maybe if I can follow-up question, thank you. Regarding the, could you share any tips on how you support new hires in learning the domain knowledge effectively? So you mentioned documentation and maybe some buddy program. Is there anything else that is proven to work for NN?
I'm not sure it's proven for NN. It's something that I do. Like I said, my teams mainly provide service to group finance, and indeed, it's very useful to also understand a little bit about the finance domain you're supporting. Yeah. What I do there, but that's a bit. I also have quite a background from group finance, so I try to with new joiners, I try to provide that themselves. So if I know on day 1 or 2, depending on how it goes, I try to plan a session with them and explain in the context of, okay, group finance, what is it? What do they do? How does a reporting period look like? Because those are critical things. So that is something I personally try to do. Yeah. Question in the back.
Question. If you are onboarding manager, not engineer, would you change anything?
No, I think I wouldn't. It's a good question. So I was thinking, but would I? Again, I think, okay, maybe not the sandbox environment where they can fire people without breaking things. That's probably not, but I think the concepts are still more or less the same, where you want to, and especially with a manager, I would expect that they are self-aware enough to know what for them works, whether they are more people who like to read or learn. So I would, with that person, have that discussion and then still apply, maybe not all these blocks, because for a different profession they may be different, but I would still believe in that having to be flexible needs to happen rather than, again, having a fixed plan, always do this, then this, then this, then this. Nice. But I'm also curious, I mean, this is my good answer. I'm also very curious to hear indeed other, I've never onboarded another manager, so never tried it, so maybe it's a very bad idea what I'm suggesting, but let's see. I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah. Do you have any structure in feedback giving during the onboarding process? And if yes, what it is?
I do, yes, but so I have different team with different team leads, so they may have their own structure, but I can answer it for myself. I try to, with a new employee, especially during the first 3 months, so the first 90 days, to have a weekly, a short catch-up, and that's mainly to do that evaluation of okay, are we still doing the things that are working for you? And sometimes that's very formal. I block half an hour. I actually try to do that as little as possible. I more try to do it if I see them around the office. Hey, let's go for lunch and then discuss it, or hey, let's have a cup of coffee. But I do try to make a point of doing that on a weekly basis. Sometimes 15 minutes is enough. But yeah, if you're not evaluating what you're doing, then it becomes basically a random, let's see what happens. Yeah, and then, yeah.
Last question.
So this, to me, seems like something good, like for people that I'm working with in the office, but not when you are hiring somebody fully remote or in another location. Or you are found, I saw that you open an office in Madrid, so you have new team members starting the team in Madrid. How do you do this when the person is isolated in a very far location?
Yeah, very good question. It would not be ideal. So at least in my team, we don't have that situation that often, although we do sometimes have indeed contractors that work somewhere else. I think you try to do the same, but it's much more distorted, especially that feedback. Is it really working? Yeah, I mean, you can have calls and they can tell you yes or no, but you cannot assess that well if it is really working. So I think it can be done. I think it takes then a bit more effort as a hiring manager to really see, is it really working?
Yeah. Like for me, I can see that, I know you should not compare, but when you have somebody joining locally in your team with your people,
yeah,
you can see that person catching up to speed,
yeah,
blazing fast, and
yeah,
you see somebody isolated far away, and you think that person has a lot of potential, but you see that it's happening very slow actually.
yeah.
And it only makes it worse when you are comparing with.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's definitely harder. So it's something to keep in mind whether you decide to hire somebody. Like on the other hand, sometimes you don't have an option or any better option, and then that's the price.
Yeah. Perfect. So I think we are good with the summary, and thank you, Thijs, for making that work for us. So again, big applause for Thijs. And just a small joke aside, was working at Mews, which is also a Holland-based company, Netherlands-based company, and I used to work there as a VP engineering, and the shit that happened to me was that actually in Netherlands you have, I guess, 2 months probation period, while in Czech Republic it's 3 months, and I was letting a person from Netherlands go in after 2.5 months. And then we asked the lawyers, and they were saying, like, Netherlands is so much social country that, the fine can be unlimited. And I was really shitting my pants, right? So, so that was one of the lessons learned about, like, contacting HR all the time to review, like, what's the reality of things. Yeah. So thank you again, Thijs, for making that work for us. And now moving on to Michael, if we may. And let's see how that compares, because that's a really nice segue. And thank you for, again, that's Thijs, about going through some more elaborate process of that. So the stage is yours, Michael.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the segue. So what I wanted also to mention about the Netherlands, it's a hiring nightmare or onboarding nightmare. If you hired somebody in Netherlands, letting that person go is actually super, super hard. So what I'm gonna talk about is, and this sounds kind of dramatic, I think it applies like double or triple for people in Netherlands, because it's really a pain. Yeah. So what I'm gonna talk about is onboarding in Mews. It's a very elaborate process for specific reasons, and I'm gonna talk about those. But first, I wanted to thank you, Marian, for inviting me, because this topic is super dear for me. It's probably one of the things I love the most about my job, and it's something I'm actually proud how we do that in Mews. So, very quickly about me, so you can stare at my face while you're staring at my face. Director of Engineering in Mews. I have 7 direct reports, 40 indirect. We call it a tribe, and what we do is we call ourselves Revenue Management Tribe. You can imagine it as basically everything that's about money in a hotel. How you set up rates, how you report that, so things like that. We kind of take care of that. Now, unless you live in a cave and you haven't been on LinkedIn for at least 5 minutes in the last 2 years, you probably heard about Mews, and you are getting sick of our posts. They're usually pink with unicorns and rainbows. Like, there's a lot of going on, and it's a journey. Like, it's a pretty big company. We call it a late stage scale up, which I would translate as, we have scaled up a lot, and we are gearing towards IPO. Now, I won't go through all the numbers, so you can read those. But one thing I want to mention is this. I've been with Mews for 2.5 years. When I started the hiring process, or when I went for first interview with Marian, actually, there were 350 employees 2.5 years ago. When I joined, when it was my first day, there was 420. Now we are more than 1,200 people. So, with using simple arithmetics, you can probably imagine that we actually double in size every year. And that means, a lot of strain on people like myself. I basically need to reinvent myself every half a year, because the company changes completely. And it also means that we've done some serious hiring and onboarding. And, we need to do it at scale, because we are scaling. And also, what the hell? Okay. We're working in a hospitality segment or hospitality industry. And, there are kind of 2 specifics about hospitality I want to mention. The first one is, it's probably one of the oldest industries in the world. Most likely, the second one after prostitution. And the reason I'm saying that, the processes that are in a hotel, that are being used in hotels, even now, are hundreds of years old. Some of them, of course, not all of them, but some of them. And the way our competitors kind of tackle that is they take those processes and digitize them. And basically what you get is a glorified Excel. What Mews has embarked on is We want to look at that, see what the hotels actually want to achieve, and redo that in kind of modern way. Completely rethink that. I think our mission is to reimagine the art of hospitality, or something like that. Basically, what we want to say is, we want to save you time, so that you have more time to spend with guests, because that's what hospitality is about. It's about human interaction. It's about talking to people and kind of looking up for their needs and making their stay really memorable, really remarkable. And our system is trying to do that. And now I realize that I didn't actually say what actually we are doing for hotels. So you can imagine Mews as kind of a set of products that help you or that allow you to manage your hotel. We call it a property management system or a hospitality cloud. Basically, everything that goes in a hotel flows through a system like this. Probably you all have been in a hotel. You know reservations. You've met a receptionist or two, so you know kind of the front of the house. But another thing I want to mention about hospitality, it is incredibly complex. And you don't see that as a guest, but when you work in a hotel, you start to realize that it's bonkers. It's ridiculously complex. Things like rate, which is like price per room. There's so many rules that you need to actually have in your system to even be considered as a PMS. And then you want to come in and rethink that, and you want to teach the hoteliers who are not tech-savvy people, and you want to teach them that they can do actually better. That's super hard. And the reason I'm saying that is, this applies to everything that we do. Well, one example that I prepared for this is we are working on a feature that's called occupancy-based pricing. Now you can translate it as an ability to set up pricing for a room based on whether there's 2 people or 1 person. Like, sounds simple, right? Simple drop down. Now, when you dive into that, you realize that, okay, so it's a rate change. So you need to have an implementation for base rates. You need to have group rates. You need to have multi-property. You need to have ledger support, reporting, stuff like that. You need to be compliant. And if you screw that up, in the better case, you make some customers angry or some customers churn. In the worst case, you become non-compliant, which is basically a fancy word. You're becoming illegal. Now, that's a lot, and basically this spans everything that we are doing. And if you imagine a normal engineering team, 8 engineers, engineering manager, product manager, you rely on 1 person to tackle all of that, which is, I would say, impossible. So what we are trying to do instead is we are trying to instill this into every employee that we hire and onboard, even engineers. Like in an ideal world, we would love to hire engineers with technical knowledge and with hospitality background. In reality, I think there's like 3 people on the European market that kind of have that, and they all work in booking and are severely overpriced, so we can't really aim for that. So what we are doing that is we are trying to give them that product mindset and give them the hospitality knowledge during onboarding. I will talk about that later. The other thing I wanted to mention is Mews is fully remote. We operate in 85 countries, more than 85 countries. That means 2 things. We have customers in more than 85 countries, which can be translated as we probably have employees in more than 85 countries. We have offices. We have, I would say, tables for like 10% of our people. Almost nobody comes to our offices unless there's a free breakfast or something like that. And we need to work with that because it sounds great, but in reality there's a lot of challenges that you need to prepare yourself for, and you need to focus on that during your onboarding. If you don't, many people will fail because it's very tempting to kind of not be engaged when you're sitting home, at your own desk and nobody sees you. So one thing, probably the most important one, we are estimating that it takes us around 6 months for an engineer to start earning us money. 6 months. In some teams, we estimate it's almost a year. Now, when you add some overhead, some hiring, if you go through agency, you add like 2-3 salaries on top of that, and you end up with basically 8 monthly salaries spent before that person starts earning you money, which is bonkers. Like if you fuck this up, you are basically 7,000 euros lighter without any benefit, you know. So, you know, if you sum up, like, we want people to give them product mindset, we want them to teach how to operate remotely, and we want to really make sure that we are getting what we've kind of invested. Yeah, we really care about our onboarding. So how do we do that? As I mentioned, kind of hospitality is the centerpiece of hotels, you know, and to be able to actually instill that into product, we believe that you need to instill that into people as well. There's actually a really cool book. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is about leadership and about building the best restaurant in the world. Like there's been a restaurant that was deemed the best in the world in New York, and you know, it's a story about how they built it. And it's a story about how to instill hospitality into your employees so that, you know, they become hospitable towards their guests. It's an awesome book, pretty short one. So I would recommend reading that to everybody. And I think it's a must read for every employee, I would say. I think it's in the onboarding materials, but I might be lying. Anyway, so how we do that? Weirdly enough, we start out onboarding, I would say like 1 month before you actually start working for Mews. This doesn't mean that, you know, we give them GitHub access and we expect PRs before they are hired. But what we are doing, you know, we realize that when you basically complete the hiring process, you shake hands. During that time, that person is the most excited ever. You know, they are excited. They're joining Mews. It's a Czech unicorn. You know, we're everywhere. We're fully remote. You know, we have this cool journey. We've been doubling in size every year. They're excited to join us. I hope so. So, you know, we want to tap into that. And what we are doing, like, there are several things, but one thing I wanted to point out, which I love, is you, like, around 30 days, and there's one person who actually went through this, like, 3 months ago, so you can call bullshit if this is not true. You get an email saying something along the lines, like, welcome on board the Mews flight, you know. You have 30 days to get to the destination, and we want you to, join the group of people that have the same start date, so you can have a chat together and fill out a boarding pass. That will be then used, you know, later during onboarding. So, you know, they fill out their title, name, some, you know, fun stuff around and stuff like that. And what we are doing by that is we want to keep them engaged. You know, we want to keep reminding them that this is Mews that you're joining. It's a right, because it really is a right, and you are a part of it right now, even before you actually signed. Also, we want to avoid actually people churning before they sign the agreement, like you said, right? And it works really well. One thing that's awesome that I'm super proud about in Mews is everybody, our C-level people, even our C-level people are very down to earth, and they engage with new hires pretty frequently. Like we had met our CEO coming to that group, you know, and there's like one every month, and just talking to the new hires, which is awesome. And you know, it shows kind of the hospitality spirit, and it kind of makes it more human for the new hires. So the second thing what I wanted to talk about is something we call the NHO. It stands for New Hire Orientation. So remember when I said that we have employees in 85 countries, or more than 85? We fly every and each and one of them to Prague for 3 days, which creates a hilarious situation, by the way, because you know we have people joining from New Zealand who have never been abroad, and now they're asked, you know, to travel to Prague. They don't have a passport. They need to get a passport, you know, and like they're kind of excited, kind of scared, like what's going to happen to them. Like we got questions around, you know, hey, I'm going to Eastern Europe and I'm afraid that I'm going to get robbed right at the airport. You know, it happens, but it's a part of the journey, you know. It has, I would say, 2 reasons. One of them, we want to feed them as much information as humanly possible, because, as I mentioned, when you start, when you shake hands, or when you are on your day one, you are the most engaged, most exciting that you will ever be. It will go only down from there. It will never go up. If you screw up your onboarding, you basically just, I would say, speed up the rate of decline. And if you screw it up, there is no way back. And we want to make sure that the first 3 days are super remarkable for them. So, it's a lot of content. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of activities. Our C-level people, Matt, our founder, Richard, actually quite often fly to Prague to meet the people. I think, this is usually Matt. And there's Richard somewhere on the third day. Richard is notoriously late, and usually it drags to like 2 hours instead of 30 minutes, but it's an experience nevertheless. The other thing that we are kind of aiming to do with this is, again, to meet other people, to make those connections. Because this will most likely be the last time that we will see those people in person. And, even me, myself, I still remember people from my NHO, and when I see them on a call somewhere, or when I encounter them in a conversation in Slack, I know who they are, and that's super powerful because, I know this guy from the content team, he actually started at the same date, and we shared a beer like 2 years ago. It's at least something, and it gives you some of that human touch that you want to instill into people. Of course, there's like the necessities. They will get a laptop, they will get everything set up, and stuff like that. Then on day 3, they usually either fly back or take an underground home, as was my case. And we kind of enroll on, I would say, more basic onboarding journey. So our kind of formal onboarding spends 30 days conveniently because, not 30, 90 days, because we are in Prague. Most of our engineers are Czech-based, probation period 3 months, onboarding 3 months. I won't go through everything, but I want to point out like 1 or 2 things for kind of each month. When I was talking about instilling that product mindset and knowledge, it usually happens on the first month. And as I mentioned, like we are very, we care a lot about that. So the way we do that usually is we enroll our new hires on something we call Mews University, which is a portal for our customers that they are using to onboard their employees. So our new hires actually go through the same process. They learn, the basics like what is ADR, how do you manage rates, what's RevPAR, so that they can, they get some abbreviations that they had no idea that they exist, stuff like that. Also, what we are experimenting with right now, because we realize that, this is a course. You can click through a course, you answer a couple of questions, and you are done. You forget like 80% of that, it is what it is. What we are experimenting with right now is actually creating real scenarios that our customers encounter. And yes, I need to mention, ChatGPT AI, but you need to mention it at least once on every meetup, on every product, unless, that's how it is right now. But this is awesome. Like, if you want, scan that QR code. There are real examples that we are using. What it says, if you can read it, basically you're a revenue manager of a 400-room hotel, come up with 5 typical scenarios that you encounter during a week. And those are my counterpart, my director of product, who has been a revenue manager for 10 years in 4 seasons. When he saw those, he was like, no, I have PTSD from this. I'm not gonna do that. Like those are real scenarios, and those are super hard, especially when you have no idea what's going on in hospitality. And what we want from our new hires is to use the same materials that our customers use, to go through the documentation, to ask our chatbot, to, in the worst case scenario, ask support, and then only after that, ask your colleague. And if you encounter stuff like you need to manage search and overbooking, like what the hell is overbooking? How does it work? And they need to kind of learn that, and they go and try it on our demo hotel. That's super powerful. Like that's much more powerful than when they read documentation because they get first-hand experience and they will never forget that. Like we've tried only a couple of times and it's been a huge success. So if there's kind of one pro tip from all of this, it would be probably this for you to take away because I really encourage you to try it. And me myself, I was actually super surprised how good those scenarios are. Now, we are in the second month. That person has a laptop. They know what is going on. They know that Mews is something about hotels. So we are on the right path. By the second month, we want them, to have something under their belt already. We want them to fix a couple of bugs, stuff like that. Talk with their team, engage. And for my engineering managers, what I want them to observe or to pay attention for is this, especially if they actually are learning from their mistakes. Like this is one of the patterns that we spot during kind of formal onboarding, and I think in my tribe we did like 50. We onboarded like 50 people, so we have some data on that. If you see that they really don't learn and they repeat the same mistakes, especially during code reviews, or on their PRs, that's one of the flags that you need to tackle right away, because it might mean that this might not be the best fit for them, or the code base that they are working on is not kind of working for them. They may not understand it. They may not get enough support. Maybe their body is not explaining that well. So it's really worth diving deep. The other thing that we are looking for is this. We are intentionally hiring opinionated people. Like we want people to be engaged, to have strong opinions, and to be able to defend them in a kind of, not aggressive way. Let's say it like that, The worst case that can happen during onboarding is person being passive, not voicing their opinions. Even if they are completely stupid, we want exactly stupid opinions because that's kind of how you innovate. And we want to see that. If we don't see that, you need to address that. And again, like we want to help that person. Maybe they are afraid of somebody. Maybe the dynamics in the team doesn't work. Maybe there's one senior engineer who is, I would say, less than nice to talk to, something like that. It can happen, but those are kind of the red flags that we are looking for. Day 90. Again, you've been with the company for 2 months. You kind of know what is going on. We want you to have delivered something. We want you to actually find what you are good at, because we are hiring usually .NET engineer or React engineers. We instill hospitality knowledge in them. But what we are trying to instill into them is, there's so many opportunities that you can kind of dive in, even things like design, maybe something from support, maybe you are really good at writing Pulumis scripts or something like that. And we want that to be in the teams. Now, there's again a couple of things that we are looking for. One thing I want to mention from this is this. So this is a pattern that we have spotted on a couple of occasions. If a person is kind of helping over here, and then reading documentation and then engaging in something else, like they're doing something, but it also can mean that they are basically procrastinating. We want people to solve hard problems, to come up with ideas, to dive deep, and to come up with something new. If they start to kind of helping other teams, which is good of course, but if they're only helping other people from other teams or fixing some small stuff, or I don't know, doing only code reviews and not actually having some ownership, that's a red flag. And you need to look into that because again, like it may be a result of their environment and you need to change the environment then. And also it can be that they just don't know what to do, or they don't feel like they can voice their opinion or anything, but definitely a red flag that you need to look up for. So yeah, that's day 90. I would say that's when the formal onboarding ends. And there's a couple of kind of insights or advices that that we agreed on with my engineering managers and that we are kind of looking for. The first one is, as I mentioned in the beginning, like it takes 6 months, at least 6 months, usually more, for an engineer to start earning you money, to be fully onboarded and fully productive. Now, you know, come on, 30 days. Like, this tells you that you can't fully onboard a person in 30 days. We work, when you consider Czech Republic, probation period, 30 days, 90 days. That means that, you know, you're kind of in between, because you know that that person by the probation period end will not be fully onboarded. But at the same time, you really don't want to let person pass the probation period if there are any red flags. So what we are looking at, or what we are looking for, is you want to see that, you know, the trajectory going up. You want to see them, you know, learning and kind of delivering more and keep being engaged. You don't want to stall them during those 90 days, and you know, you want to look out for the red flags. But at the same time, you need to keep in mind that they are not fully onboarded. It will take much more time than that. And this is hard, absolutely. And to kind of battle that, we have a rule, which is kind of obvious, but you know, if there's anything that doesn't play, or anything that you might not like, you need to voice that immediately. 90 days, that flies by, you know. If you don't pay attention, you onboard that person, you know, they go through NHL, you have a beer with them, and from nothing, you're kind of sitting on day 89, and you're facing a dilemma whether you want to keep that person or not. That's a failure. Like, this can't be a surprise. It actually happened to us a couple of times. Of course it did. And what we realized is usually the engineering manager didn't pay that much attention as they were supposed to, or something else broke, but nevertheless we treat it as a failure in the system, like as if we had an incident, you know, we have a root cause analysis, stuff like that. We want to learn from that. Because, you know, if you are in the end of that onboarding journey and you are hesitating to let that person pass it, like what it says? It says that, you know, you're not really sure that you want to keep them, and that you want to keep up with them for another 2, 3, 4 years. And I would say it's better to let that person go in that case, because if you let them pass that, it's very hard to let the person go. And you are basically risking two things. Either it will, well, basically one. You are risking that person, there are some red flags and is not as engaged as they should be. And so that you're not getting your return of investment that you were supposed to get from that person. And it's a failure, and it hurts. But I am a strong believer that, you know, it's better to make the hard decision, to let that person go, to eat the dirt, learn from that, and try again. Because you just burned 70,000 euros, something like that, right? But it can be much more if you kind of keep struggling with that for another year or two. So, and the next rule. And this of course, applies throughout the whole onboarding process. Like, if you hire that person, they start onboarding, and you need to let them go. Again, you're burning money. It's hard, it hurts, but it's better than do that 2 years in time or a year in time. And this is super hard, especially for, I would say, junior engineering managers, or more junior engineering managers, because, you know, that guy, he's doing something, like he fixed some bugs, he brings some value, but it may not be enough, you know? Like, usually what helps me to explain that to my managers is, yeah, they bring value. But imagine that you had a superstar instead of him, and they would bring much more value. You would love working for them, with them. Your team would love them. Wouldn't that be better, right? And they usually realize that, yeah, this is gonna suck, but yeah, you're right. It's better to look for the better fit. And I think this is a closing one. Yeah. As I mentioned in the beginning, and hence the kind of dramatic name of this talk. If you fail it, you will not get another chance. Again, remember what I said. When a person starts, they are the most engaged and excited as they will ever be. It will go only down. In some cases, very slightly, It will decrease over the span of 12 years. Maybe it will flatline, which is great. Then I would like to have a contact for that person. But, if you screw that up during onboarding, you may you can just shut down that person, and they will drift. It will work out somehow. They will deliver something, but it's not worth the investment. It's much better to, call it quits, learn from that mistake, start again. And that's us.
Any questions, comments? Do we do the Slido or do we go directly? What do you say? Yeah, let's do direct. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Michal, thank you very much. Lots of information. I'm super excited that you're domain heavy because that's what we are as well. And right, in terms of learning, I picked up on some cool things like dog fooding and all that, which is great. But is there anything you haven't mentioned regarding supporting engineers learning the domain, and especially if they are struggling or the domain is complex? Do you have any tips how to help people learn as quickly as possible?
Help people learn as quickly as possible. I would say a hands-on experience is the best. Like ideally, we would love to send everybody to a hotel for a duration. It's like logistically, it's not possible. There's not enough hotels for that. But apart from that, one of the things I would say is important is you need to give them the space. And that's the reason why we are doing that as the first thing during onboarding, because that's where they actually have time for that. Once they dive into the code, once they open their Visual Studio and start reviewing PRs, it's done. Like they will never get back to it. So, you need to really make it in the first, I would say, 30, 60 days. But it doesn't happen after that.
Thank you for interesting talk. My question was that you were mentioning gamification, right? It's a great way to make them engage. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you also have this kind of question for the interview itself? Because it seems that you would find a lot of these red flags on the spot. Like, do they question? Are they opinionated?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I think the checklist would be about the same. Like, we want people to have strong opinions. We want them to be engaged. We want them to ask questions that make me sweat as an interviewer, stuff like that, definitely. Anything else? You had a question, right?
Yeah, maybe adding to the first question around learning the domain is sort of like meeting people from hospitality part of the onboarding. Like in the first 3 days here in Prague, for example, I believe your product owners stuff well people from the hospitality industry. So they interact with them directly or possibly with the customers. Yeah, as I mentioned, I would love to bring people to a hotel, to talk to revenue managers or receptionists. It's not logistically possible, but of course we have many people who have hospitality background, and I would say most of them actually are the ones who do the NHO. So even Matt, our CEO, he worked for Hilton for 15 years, I think. There's other people who have hospitality background. So yeah, they get that exposure. They don't get it as hands-on as I would like, but it's the best we can do. Maybe do you have some sort of an internal community where the engineers can ask people from this domain, or something like that similar? I don't know. We don't do that as a community, but it's actually a great idea. What we do is
For some features, some kind of product parts, we have pilot properties where an engineer can actually engage with that person who will actually use it. I know it's a bit different, but they get at least exposure that way.
First of all, thanks. It was really nice content.
Thank you.
And the question is if you could share your statistics. Like, it seems to be very strict and detailed. So I'm wondering how many people pass through.
Statistics.
If it's not too much to ask.
Let me think. I think, as I mentioned, we onboarded or hired and onboarded around 50 people. And I would say if we let go, like, during onboarding, I remember 2.
2?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because our hiring process is really good as well, right? So Now, this is actually surprising that it sounds, rough. It really is not, but we want. What I wanted to bring you guys is the red flags that we are looking for, because that's what's important.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're talking about like candidate passing probation, but have you ever experienced a case when candidate decided not to continue with probation?
Yeah, and that's it's a pretty recent case, and it's a case where we failed onboarding, like entirely. There was a situation where the manager that was supposed to onboard that person, he wasn't really engaged, and exactly as I said, that person just shut down on week 2, and we actually weren't able to contact him for a couple of days because he really didn't care. He realized that he's working remotely, nobody can see him, so I will do some part of my work, and nobody will see that. So yeah, it happens. Yeah.
So your onboarding is pretty expensive, like
Yes.
you said, and you said that you have great hiring process. Can you talk a little bit about the hiring part?
Next meetup.
That's even better.
I would say it's still in flux, but again, we're looking for, I would say, the same thing that I mentioned. One thing that we are doing that's kind of different is we have a culture stage where anybody from Mews can actually interview anybody else. So, on your culture stage, you can meet somebody from customer support, for instance, and stuff like that. And that's the first thing we evaluate. Once, if you don't pass culture stage, we are not proceeding with that. Then for engineers, there's a technical interview. Then they get a homework. And the last part is they get to meet their potential team and they do code review together. So it's a convoluted process, but it works really well for us. Go ahead.
And what's the statistic for the culture?
I don't remember. I think most people actually do pass the culture part.
Okay.
As far as I remember, and like I would say our hiring process is not yet optimal. Most people don't pass. If they don't pass, they don't pass the code review part or the homework part.
Class.
Yeah. We need to reverse the funnel, but that's for another meetup.
Okay. One last question from the audience.
Thanks for the talk. You mentioned that at the final step, you also discussed with the manager if this guy contribute enough. Right? Did you have a case where you fired someone who contributed more or less okay, but you thought that he contributed not enough, you would like to hire someone who will contribute even better? How did you explain it to the team? Because the team saw that the guy contributed.
This is super hard. As I mentioned, like there are cases where a person actually does work. They do some work, they contribute something, but you as a manager, for instance, you hire them as a senior engineer, you would like to see more. And you've hired a couple of people, you know what they are capable of, you know what you are looking for. And some of the red flags can tell you that, yeah, maybe something is not working out. You dive deeper, you talk to your teammates, realize that, yeah, maybe it's not working out. So engage with that employee and realize that, they're doing their best or they don't really care much. And, then you need to make the call. And as I mentioned, like it doesn't happen as much as it may sound like, but I want my teams to be prepared for this.
Thank you, Michal.
Thank you so much.
Okay, amazing.
Actually, so we don't neglect Slido. There's one question.
Okay.
It's a hard one.
Oh,
okay,
shit.
so it might be harder for small startups to plan or make an interesting and useful onboarding process. How would you approach that? Next meetup?
No, let me think about it for 10 seconds.
No, but it's a good question because
Yeah.
we know that Mews, is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
unicorn, it's a big company.
Like
You pretty much nailed everything.
we have the comfort of doing this the expensive way, right? But startups have the comfort in actually having the ability to meet everybody in the company. And I would say, like, as I mentioned, meeting people and getting those engagement is probably on top of list for every onboarding, or it should be, because that's kind of how you proceed your career, how you keep engaged, that that those people can help you, you can discuss. And I would say for a company of not 1,200 people, when we talk about startup that has like 100 people, meeting actually those 30, 40 that you're gonna work with, it's much easier.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's fair.
Maybe.
That's fair. Also another meetup.
Yeah.
Perfect. So thanks again, Michael, for the talk. I will start and complete all the talks that we had. And again, with Thijs, we had a pretty great topic about the very first day of the onboarding, making sure that it works pretty culturally well. Then we had a talk with Michael about saying, like, what Mews is doing actually to make sure that they onboard their people in the sort of a professional way and pretty meaningful way. The one thing that I want to open is really to give you a full transparent detail about how I see the onboarding framework and what are the specific checklists and KPIs that are making me sure that people are passing through the onboarding pretty well. So let's go through that, and I promise it's going to be hopefully pretty meaningful and fast. So the one thing that one of the questions that we had is, hey, so how come you might be having a technical person who's actually good at programming skills and technical expertise, but nevertheless you decide to, let's say, move on with them and let them go. And usually this is one of the things that I want you to make sure that you understand it, which is, let's be honest, most of the time we say no to someone. It's not due to their technical expertise, it's mostly because of the culture, chemistry, or misfits. Because actually I might be okay to say, hey, let's keep Peter for another 3 months because he's got high potential. I know very well and very sure that that's the person who's going to come to the stage that will be very satisfied with him. Nevertheless, if the chemistry is broken, you can do pretty much nothing with that. And that comes back to what Michael was saying about the culture itself. And I think that's the very same reason why the culture fit is one of the very first initial screenings instead of some sort of a simplistic screening talk. So that's the answer of where the 85% of people are moving towards and why they usually get laid off. So let me go straight away through the very specific checklist, and please feel free to use it. Please feel free to copy it, screenshot it, whatever comes to your mind. So that's it. So the very first month is, of course, you want to make sure that besides setting up the day number one, besides setting up the body, besides other mandatory things, you want to make sure that you go through the first month, KPIs with the new starter, so that they know how they're going to be evaluated after the 4 weeks are passing or have passed. And as you can see, introduce these goals. One of the things that I want to make sure, for example, is that please, by all means, make sure that you invest enough of the time to build relationships. Usually this is the mistake number one, because we are talked or asked to go there straight away into coding and to perform and to outperform. Again, in my book, that's a huge mistake. I want to see people making relationships, making sure that they are part of the team, that they understand what the team's purpose is. Otherwise, when the shit hits the fan, nobody's going to help you because of the broken relationships. That's usually how it works. And again, let's be open about it. The second thing, of course, we talk about is the tooling. What's the most important is this point, which is, again, money. What I mean by money is I can't imagine having an engineering manager or a software developer and asking them to be part of the sprint planning session while they are not capable at all to understand what's the company's business model, what's our product strategy, what's on our roadmap at least, what are our OKRs or KPIs. I mean, like, these people are lost. And you wouldn't believe how many companies are just saying to software developers, just start working on your shit without eventually, telling them, what's on our product vision, what's on our product strategy and the roadmap. And that's something that you want to avoid doing, otherwise you waste their time. The other thing is to complete the internal product courses. Again, that's what we talk about, and I think that has been pretty well described. To me, a hard thing is to make sure that we contribute, or the new starter contributes, at with at least one contribution per week. And I think this is a reasonable, let's say, frequency or tempo that you want to see, happening in place. The other thing, and we speak month one still, at least one pull request that we've committed and that has been approved by a new starter. I hope that makes sense. And of course, if we go through all the checks, week 4, again, we do a quick check. It's a 10-minute check, nothing more than that. We don't need to do some sort of sync meeting. We are just asking async throughout the Slack, hey, how it's been doing? What are we meet this criteria? What we can do further in order to improve that and to move towards the next month. If there are some pieces missing, eventually it might be the fault of the new starter or our own fault. Usually it's our own fault, to be honest, because we haven't taken care too much eventually, and so on and so forth. One of the most important things that I want to open is, actually that's the mistake of the companies that I see that the companies doing within the first month, except not taking care of the onboarding process, is that, you know how it goes. There is a new programmer, she's called Michelle, she's great. Nevertheless, usually what we do is that we ask Michelle to work on fixing bugs and, covering code by the tests in order to get her adopted into the product, which is a total bullshit because basically you are losing the person because they are not working on things that matter. And I guarantee you after 2 weeks or a month, there is no way you can get them back on track. There is no way, again. And again, you would be surprised how many companies are just, asking for, for the sake of, your understanding of how we code and how we work on with the things, please, for the next couple of months, you will be working on fixing bugs and implementing some test scenarios. Like, why the hell? Why the hell? So that's something that I want to see, that I would not want to see. Month 2, of course, after we do the review of the first month and we are good, we are still good, hopefully. I want to make sure that with the new starter, we contribute and complete at least one product ticket with no specific oversight. It might be a small functionality that is part of the larger epic or something. And let's be honest, of course, we are helping each other. It's not like with zero oversights, but basically what we want to enable is the ownership, the principle of the ownership. The second thing, contributing to at least one decision-making event. Again, no-brainer, you might be thinking, but that's basically the check that people are not sort of passive, as Michael was saying. The third thing, understand the product and the KPIs and the reports. What I mean by that, each product has their own KPIs in terms of the, let's say, health of the product. Eventually, each and every engineering team do have their own KPIs in terms of their efficiency and productivity, right? If you don't know them, basically, you might be risking moving slightly behind rails. Number 4, start preparing your observations. What I mean by that, what I used to do is that after the first month, I meet informally, having a coffee with the new starter and asking them how they are doing. And in case everything goes well, I'm asking them to start thinking of preparing their list of observations, what actually might be worth improving because they are not biased yet to some degree. And we'll go through that list at the formal probation review event or meeting. Of course, in the meantime, we want to make sure that they gather the feedback. I mean, the new starters, that they are on the line well and how well things are going with them. What I advise to do as a bonus, basically, there are people who might be better at contributing towards some specific things, such as creating a new blog post about, like, again, how my onboarding journey was, right? Or you might be asking them to speak at your community of practice because they are backend. So we have a backend community of practice. So let's tell us something, some sort of technology we haven't explored here, some design pattern, whatever it comes to your mind, of course. And after these basically checkpoints are validated, again, we want to make sure that we review at them all together and move into the 3rd month. I hope that's crystal clear. Again, warning sign for me is if I see that the new starter has some sort of not really optimal relationships being built. I know it sounds crazy, right? I'm an IC, I'm an individual contributor, so what the heck? I'm not here to, chat with each and every person. I'm not asking for that. Nevertheless, the correlation between having weak relationships and your success is quite straightforward. No surprise. And yet, what Michael be saying, I remember when I was hiring my engineering directors and managers at Mews, I was telling them that one of the clear warning signs is that a person asks the very same question for the 3rd time. You know how it feels? That's a strong warning, actually. I'm not asking you to remember each and everything from what's on the product roadmap, strategy, and so on and so forth. That's for sure we are not capable to do that. Nevertheless, what we have at least is people making notes. That's a sign of that we are sort of intellectual people, and we can come up with our ways of working to understand the environment. Moving on to month 3, which is the final stage of the onboarding. What I want to witness, or what we want to witness, is that as a new starter, you've built the relationships outside of your team or department. Could be a very close department, which is the product department, or support, or marketing, whatever comes to your mind. We want to make sure that there is a responsibility being taken for some business scope. Again, Michael was saying he loves basically evaluating and improving the onboarding process. That's a very specific and narrow scope that we want to tackle. Or you might be having actually, a very specific initiative that is ongoing and contributing to that initiative, meaning that is part of the product roadmap, for example. You might be even keen to own some technology, so raising your hand and saying, like, these sort of pipelines are mine, because that's what I'm really great at, so I will be more than glad to optimize that. And again, coming to the 3rd point, take on a bigger initiative. I think that's a no-brainer. And here, I don't mean the full ownership. I mean contributing to some sort of bigger initiative, which is, again, no surprise, working on things that matter most, meaning usually the roadmap. Understanding the color letter, the opportunities, and making sure that you know where your areas of growth are. That's really important, because without it, you wouldn't be able to build your personal development plan. And that's something that usually you want to come up with as a proposal to the final probation review meeting, which is not only about how it went and what we can improve, but also about what's in there for me and in order to improve my own skill set. Of course, we want to ask you for the feedback, so we usually know how it goes. You shouldn't be asking for the feedback only at the very meeting. It could be part of the process about like, hey, Michael, tell us how your onboarding process was working for you specifically. And each and every new starter is going through a list of questions or some survey that is telling you how well our onboarding process works. Actually, it would be no surprise if the onboarding process has some KPIs on the process itself. And of course, that comes back to the onboarding survey that we exactly said. Usually, people focus on the full probation period review. That's how we could call it. Let's say 20 to half an hour to 1 hour meeting, where we are saying like how things are going for us, whether we are staying together. Usually, the way how I call it is that whether we still have a win-win between both of the parties, right? And that's the meeting where usually the decision is made. And again, month 3, if we see that, and this is my warning list, if we see that there is a weak ownership about like, nah, that's not my part of the job, nah, that's nothing I can improve. Again, maybe it's even too late we should have stopped that even earlier than month 3. And of course, culture misfits, sometimes it happens, and I think each and every person has experienced a situation where technically a new starter was pretty great in terms of their technical expertise, but when speaking in terms of the culture or communication, there was something that you could sense that does not work within the team, and that's something that you want to avoid, exactly. The one thing that I want to say out loud, you have you know how it goes, you have that sixth sense that is telling you and warning you, hey, don't continue with that person. But logically you are asking yourself the questions about, nah, it's gonna be great. It will not. That's my experience, and I'm sure you do have a similar experience with that as well. This is actually one of the things that I would highly advise you to basically ask your new starters to work on. Because you might be asking, like, so what are they supposed to improve? I mean, they could improve the onboarding process themselves, right? How about asking them to at least improve some small technical details or the documentation of the onboarding process or whatever that is, a small step of that. That's really great. And now coming to the main thing, which we are talking mainly about the happy paths, but usually there is not a happy path, which is terminating a person, hopefully before the probation period ends. Hopefully. Especially in Netherlands. Joking. Usually the way how I would advise you to do that, and again, that's my way of approaching the situation, is that the month 1, usually things go pretty well, hopefully. And as I was saying, I'm asking the new starter to come up with their, let's say, list of ideas about what we can improve because they are not biased yet by the environment. And at the month 3, what I'm doing is that basically we are having, again, an informal meeting where we are, and these are the rules. First of all, it's the new starter starting the meeting about what's their, let's say, experience, how it went, what we can improve. Then usually it's the team lead or engineering manager of that person, where I'm asking the person how it went from their observation and whether we see it was still a mutual fit. And here's the truth. Before that meeting happens, I'm asking my engineering manager, please, Mike, tell me how he wants me to end that meeting. Why? Because I'm giving them the opportunity to express their, let's say, opinions, worries, and so on and so forth. Because if I don't do that, and I'm asking them to basically be sort of negative and about like things are not going as expected, then usually we end up by saying, yeah, let's give in yet another chance, yet another couple of months. You know how it goes. So if things don't go well, it is me raising the hand at the meeting and saying, to a team lead, hey, Mike, you can basically drop off. and I will manage the rest. And it's a small 15-minute talk. Again, my advice is don't go into the details. If you go into the details, I warn you, you will end up having a talk with HR. This is usually how it goes, because they can dive you into the technical details, how many pull requests they've made, who's been talking with whom, and this is not the root cause. This is not the root cause. The root cause is usually the culture, the communication, not really the technical skills, to be honest. You know it. So don't play the game over here. That's my advice. And give the team leads the opportunity to say no. And this is how I usually do it, so that they can express their opinion. If I don't provide them this platform, usually it's like, you know, especially as we said, a junior engineering manager, usually they are very hesitant to say no. And that usually hurts. Because what we haven't said is that it's not only costing you money, but it also lowers the efficiency of the team itself if you leave somebody toxic within the team. No surprise, right? So that's one of the things, and I wanted to add yet another tip, which is a lingo. You know that each and every company has their own terminology and lingo, right? So this is yet another thing that you can ask people, for example, to come up with, to implement. And again, I can speak about another tips for a couple of hours, but don't want to make it too much longer. So thank you for having this attention. I know that we are pretty much depleted because we wanted specifically to give you a pretty detailed overview about what is the playground at your Power Force you can come up with. And as a call to action, please improve your onboarding process. As such, you don't need to create a system, some sort of detailed system out of it. You don't need to create a process, as we said. Rather translate it as guidelines. This is a guideline, and please adopt to that guideline as you wish within your team and improve it constantly. So with that in mind, thank you for making sure that the information has been processed through, that you are staying with us. And again, thank you for Anand and Peter. Peter, if you can come up here from the Anand to give us the opportunity to open this meetup here. So big applause for Peter and the crowd. Thank you to Amy, Nicole, and Sohaila, to others to make this meetup and this event working as well. And most importantly, again, Thijs and Mike, if you can come up here. So making sure, because you contributed very well to what he spoke about. So big applause to our speakers as well. Thank you very much. I know there is a couple of slides, and I know that we will be talking about questions. Please feel free to reach out, all of us, as we are here. We'll answer all the questions as possible. And make sure that, the Q&A, of course, we will have. Next meetup will be even more interesting, which will be the first 100 days for a CTO, which nicely combines, our narrative here. The networking, and the networking, of course, is the most important. So I think it's time to have some refreshment and beer. So stay in touch with us, and we'll have another meetup in, I don't know, a couple of weeks as usual. So thank you again, and now it's just a networking and fun time. So thanks for that.